right. Well, this is the Beer Scholar Family Hour. What's up, beer geeks? I'm Chris Cohen. I'm here with Scott Fielder and Chris Crowe. And this episode is going to be real chill. We're just going to sort of introduce ourselves and talk about how we met, talk about what the plans are for Beer Scholar, what we're all doing here, and kind of what we have in store for y'all. I think first things first, what are you guys drinking over there?
We're both drinking an Urban Roots lager. It's their 11 degree, like Czech style amber their half dark lager, and it is unreal good.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Urban Roots is great. Remind me what city they're in. Sacramento?
Sacramento.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, they're great. I like all the breweries that are focusing more on lagers these days. I just love that.
Yeah, all of their lagers, but especially their Czech style ones are great. And you can't just like walk into a store and get a Polo Tmave Czech style half dark lager anytime you want. So when we saw it, we were like, that's what we are for sure drinking tonight. So
that's very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I got me, there's a brewery here in Portland called Breakside. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I feel like I've heard of Breakside.
Yeah. They're fairly well known. This is their Wanderlust IPA. I was on a little Zoom thing with Jeff Allworth for the little community he's building, the Beervana community, which is of course focused on Portland. And he had the head brewer of Breakside on the other day. I haven't been to Breakside yet. I've really only been here a few weeks, so I haven't been almost anywhere. But I'm excited to go there because if Jeff Allworth says that they're very great, then they probably are. So
I'm trying to remember what year it was, but I think, the IPA categories are always the most competitive at GABF. Everyone wants to get a medal.
Yep.
And I think Breakside pulled down 2 medals in the IPA category in the same year. It's just like out of control.
That's right. I believe that they had been around for a couple of years, only maybe like 3. I'm trying to remember the story, but yeah, they'd only been around a few years. And then they won a couple GABF medals in IPA, which wasn't even originally supposed to be their focus for brewing. And obviously that the owner brewer said that completely changed the game for them. They just blew up after that.
Well, cheers to, shout outs to Urban Roots and Breakside tonight.
Yeah.
Drinking good.
Indeed. So, yeah, I guess we should just introduce ourselves. It's funny, Beer Scholar's been around for a lot of years, but there was never like a face to it, really. I mean, it's funny, I can walk into a bar most places on the planet, and if someone who's behind the bar is a certified Cicerone, they will know my name because it just seems like almost everybody used my study guide to pass the exam or to study for the exam. So I'll walk in and I'll be like, hey, do you know who Chris Cohen is? And they'll be like, oh yeah, and then I'll be like, that's me. And they're like, oh shit. So that's, and it's been amazing over the years. I've been, I was like flown to Sydney for Sydney Beer Week once. I've gotten to do a lot of really cool things because of Beer Scholar, but I think people haven't seen how beautiful I am. But now that I'm doing video, they can. So, but what I'm really getting at here is I don't think a lot of people really know me. So I'm just gonna give a quick bio. So I am a former attorney. I guess, well, I'm still an attorney. I'm a member of the Bar of the State of New York. And, but after practicing law for a brief time in New York City, I decided that I didn't really love it. And I ended up moving out to San Francisco. This was like 2007, 2008. I had some of those like seminal beer experiences that are kind of like the ones that everyone has more or less, which are like, I went to Europe and I had like wit beer in Belgium, and I was like, whoa, like this is amazing. I was already primed for that stuff because in college going all the way back actually to like what my dad drank. He drank amber. His favorite beer was like Amberbach, right? Michelob Amberbach, which I think it doesn't seem, special at all. Who knows? I'm sure they haven't made it forever, but I just remember thinking like, oh, that's weird. My dad drinks like this kind of like heavy duty beer compared to what other people are drinking just by virtue of the fact that it looked amber. So I remember when I first started getting into drinking, I just was like, oh, I should try some other stuff. And I think my dad kind of gave me that idea. I will say the very first time I ever drank he claims, was him putting a little bit, dipping his finger in a beer at a Phillies game, because I was born in Philadelphia, and he put it in my mouth and I barfed all over him. So that's how I got started. But, even in college, I was like, there was one bar in town. I went to Florida State University in Tallahassee, and there was one bar in town that had interesting beer, and this was like pre-craft beer. Like they weren't saying the place was called Fatties and Skinnies, by the way, and it was about, you couldn't even walk. It was amazing. It was like you could sit at the bar if you could get a seat, but you could not barely walk behind a person at the bar because the wall and the person's back were like this far apart. So it was really just this long skinny bar. It was real trippy. The whole shtick was everything's an import. And that meant they had really weird and interesting beer. I remember I had a McEwen's Scotch Ale there. And that's the one I really remember, and a Tukers, which I think was some kind of wheat beer. But I remember thinking the McEwen's tasted like syrup. I was like, this is disgusting. But after that, I ended up going to Europe, super lucky to have been able to do that. And I was in London. I got to drink some weird beers there. Then I went went through Belgium, got to drink some weird beers there. And then when I came back to the U.S., this was like early 2000s. Anyway, the pump was primed. So when I got to San Francisco and it just so happened that I ended up renting an apartment from this guy who is a beer writer. Brian Yeager is his name. And he introduced me to all these people in San Francisco in the Bay Area beer scene back in like 2007, 2008. And I just like ran with it. I was just like, oh man, this is so exciting. I tried my first sour beers. I had my first like barrel-aged stouts, and I was just like in love. I started homebrewing like crazy. And anyway, so very soon after that, over the next few years, I ended up, the first thing I wanted to do was just find people to kind of do homebrewing stuff with, like share that, because none of my friends did it. So there was no homebrew club. The one homebrew club in San Francisco had basically collapsed for some reason. And I knew some of the guys who were in it from back in the day. They were kind of like over it. I don't know for whatever reason, but I was like, well, I guess I better start my own homebrew club if I want to do this. So in 2012, I started the San Francisco Homebrewers Guild. And then, from homebrewing, and I tell everyone this who was studying for the Cicerone exam stuff, like homebrewing is like such a great way to learn about beer and styles and ingredients and, brewing techniques, obviously. So anyway, I learned a lot from that. I got interested in judging, became a BJCP judge and a certified Cicerone sometime around like 2013 or so. And I guess my experience in studying and prepping for the CC was just kind of frustrating to me because there was like no information out there, right? This was like kind of early in the game. So I just thought, I was obviously very good at studying, right? I passed the New York bar exam, all this stuff. But I had like prolific notes that I had prepped for the certified level. And I thought if I spend like a few months working on these, I could turn it into a study guide. But I wasn't sure if there was much of a demand for that. So I did a Kickstarter. It was successful. And so that first bunch of books, I actually printed them out and mailed them to people. Quickly realized that was a nightmare and started doing digital. Yeah, that was brutal. And I spent there were some people that I lost money on from printing and mailing them the book, Yeah.
Are there old signed copies out there, collector's items now?
I have a couple. I got one right here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we got to see this.
Oh, it's like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's it.
Love it.
Yeah. It's
Very
a
cool.
little bit of an out of date version, but yeah, it has the quizzes in the back and everything. Anyway,
Cool.
yeah, so that was great, and I made a website for it. You know, I thought this was gonna be like a one-time thing. I just figured I would give it a shot. But yeah, I made a website. I started selling them, and it worked, right? And it actually allowed me to step back from the legal work I was doing. I mean, don't get me wrong, Beer Scholar wasn't like paying San Francisco, rent, but like it really did allow me to step back and say, like, for the next, year or so, I'm gonna work on getting a bar open. And I found some cool partners to work with on that, and went for it. And without, Beer Scholar as this like ongoing side hustle, I don't know how I would have been able to ever, make that work. So, yeah, I mean, I guess even when I first passed it, I felt like I was well beyond the level of certified Cicerone in terms of my knowledge. So I knew when I walked out of that test that I had passed, but I also knew I knew a couple of masters, and I knew that I was way far away from where they were at. So at that time,
Right.
there was no advanced. So there was no stepping stone. And I remember talking to people at the Cicerone program, and they were like, yeah, we get these people who want to take master who have only passed the certified level coming in to take the test and just getting like destroyed, not even showing up for day 2. And, so I was really stoked when they came out with the advanced, took it right away, took the second one they ever gave, did have to retake the tasting, but, I was one of the first bunch of advanced, and I think that was 2017, 16, 17? Anyway, it was a while ago. So I love hanging out with you guys who've just been prepping for it, because you're like so dialed on your tasting and your like knowledge of all the commercial examples and everything. It's awesome. And honestly, there's been a lot of research that's been coming out, which I've kept up on, but not to the extent that I'm like, I need to answer essay questions. So, so that's pretty cool. And so the way that we ended up meeting was that you guys hit me up. It was probably about 2 years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic, right, Scott? I think it was.
Yeah, it was. I started thinking about doing this Zoom study group for the advanced exam in like early May of 2020, and then I think we had our first meeting like late in June, like June 27th or something of 2020. But yeah, I reached out to you and I said, hey, I've heard, I know obviously you passed the exam. I know it was a while ago, but I also remembered that you had at some point mentioned that you had tried studying in a group and that it didn't go so well. And so I said, can you just come on here? And if people have questions for you, people are going to, again, like everybody who was on it had probably used the study guide. And so they were fine having you there anyway, because that was just going to be cool to meet you. But then, the biggest thing I remember taking away is like, you just have to prevent studying in a group from becoming happy hour, because it's too easy for everybody to have a drink while you're doing it, and then you just start chatting, and then it just goes off the rails, and you just end up realizing, wow, we just hung out for 2 hours and we didn't do a thing. So,
yeah, didn't actually learn, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was really fun. Yeah,
Yeah. So you hit me up, and I was like, and you kind of asked me if I would like do some classes for you guys, and I was thinking like, so the pandemic has just begun, and I am completely like freaking out, and I'm like I need to save my bar mode, right? So I'm like working my ass off on that. While also, right? Because it was after, right?
It was after the shutdowns.
Yeah.
It was like,
exactly. Right.
It was kind of as we were all emerging from lockdown and stuff.
I know you just said the date, but I'm like,
4 months. at that point. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So I was like I was in it deep, like with trying to save the bar. It was like, I hate to use the word pivot, but it was like the every week pivot to a new business model kind of thing that was going on. So I was kind of freaking out, but I was also thinking like, I had been just before the pandemic started I was about to stop working at Old Devil Moon to focus on Beer Scholar full time. So I was feeling like I knew I wanted to make a course for the advanced exam, an online course for all the levels, the first 3. And so on the one hand, I knew I wanted to like really re-up my knowledge. And of course, there's no better way to do that than to teach. But I also knew that it had been a few years since I'd done it. So it was going to take a lot of prep work. So I was like, I just don't have time, but I'll come hang out at some of your meetups. So, and it was super fun. It was cool.
So the big question that we had was that we were thinking about is, if you are thinking back to that time and you're thinking, okay, there's this group of people that are studying for advanced, and I'm thinking about doing an advanced study guide. At what point in your mind was it like, okay, I need to, like, I've known I probably can't do this on my own. It'll take me years and years. It's a lot of information. At what point were you like, okay, like, I think I'm comfortable just reaching out and being like, okay, I want to try and bring somebody else on and helping me with this. Do you remember when that epiphany happened?
Yeah, I definitely do. And it had a lot more to do with coming to the conclusion that you guys were super solid guys who were excited about this stuff and were passing the test, right? So I think, to me, some business advice, as a person who has started several businesses that are more or less successful, one of the things I would say is that, like, just the people you surround yourself with is why you're going to sink or swim, to a very large degree. So yeah, it wasn't like I came to some conclusion about my abilities to do it or not. It was more about being like, these guys are rock solid. They're really smart. They organized this year-long course. So you've already done some of that work, and you know what I mean? So yeah, it seemed like an obvious idea. And so, that's a roundabout way of telling our audience that we are working on an online course for the advanced Cicerone exam. I will tell you, I get asked if I'm doing this by a random person by email every week. Every week someone's like, dude, when are you going to make an advanced study guide? And, and always my response was like, oh, I'm like working on it, or, just give me some time. But it's like, actually, it's a ridiculously huge project. So,
funny enough, that was our first, one of the reasons, full disclosure, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on was because I wanted to know where you were at. Because when we met for the first time, I literally just asked the question, is it worth it for us to try and study now, or do we just find out how close Cohen is to being done with a study guide, and then if we just have to wait 6 months and he's going to come out with everything and we don't need to reinvent the wheel, like,
I love that.
Then do we wait? And then you came on and you're like, no, I haven't even. You're like, you were worried, like you said, you were worried about the bar. Yeah. The pandemic was happening. You're like, I'm not even thinking about that. And then I was like, okay, cool. I can't wait around a year or however long it might take. So we've got to just do this. And I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think, like if I do this and it goes really well, and because we've had 3 people in our study group passed the written. I've passed the tasting. We'll find out soon whether Chris passed the tasting, and another gentleman in our group named Steve, and we've got Anna Deep, who's going to be hopefully coming to take the tasting exam. So once we started getting results, I was like, okay, we're onto something. And then also the fact that the written exam became available online, I think that was something where you were like, okay, you guys have got to tell me what that was. Like, just the format of it. Like, well, how do you, like, when you sign in, like, what do you have to have on you? You have to have your ID. You've got to scan it. You've got, just using the program as a whole thing that we were worried about. We were like, are we going to be able to copy and paste something while we're doing an essay, or are we going to have to type everything out again if we have to repeat ourselves? Or
yeah, I would say one thing that is just the truth of the matter is all the tests are always evolving. I mean, especially certified and advanced. Like I said, I took the second advanced they ever gave, and they actually gave everyone there a free retake on the tasting, which, like I mentioned, I failed that. They gave everyone a free retake because there were some testing issues with the brewery we were at. Anyway, point being, from talking to you guys and other people who've taken the advanced more recently, it's clearly evolved to some extent, and so has the certified since I took that, which, I mean, dang, it's going to be a decade soon, since I took the certified level.
Yeah.
They've definitely made some changes, and because the community of folks like us is a thing, I do hear back from people who give me feedback, about what changes they're seeing, what my guide didn't prepare them for, that kind of stuff. But listen, before we get into all of the Beer Scholar specific stuff, I would love to hear about you guys. So everyone just heard how we met, basically, and things have evolved very quickly. We're getting married soon, but no, but
that's what yeah.
So Scott, why don't you just hit us with your background and what got you into beer and where you're at?
Yeah. I'm originally from Anaheim, California. That's where I was born and raised. I actually didn't drink alcohol for a large portion of. I think I started drinking. Bourbon was the first thing I enjoyed in terms of alcohol, but I haven't really been drinking craft beer for not even more than 5 years. So early 2018, I was helping to run a national event, and I was doing hospitality work. And one of the things was we were in Houston, and I think this is a chain kind of, just bar. It's called the Flying Saucer, and it was their location in Houston. And we were handing drink tickets out to everybody so people could kind of order whatever they want. And this was the first place where on the menu, I saw that there was a beer bottle list where it was you could get one, 750 milliliter that was kind of more expensive. Usually it's just draft, or you can get a can or a 12 ounce. That's kind of what I thought you could get. And it comes to the end of the event, and we have all these extra drink tickets. And I looked to the person who, bought them, and I said, can the team that's hosting this use the rest of these? Everybody's gone. And she said, yeah, they're paid for, so we might as well use them for ourselves, because we're not just going to throw them away. And I asked the waitress, I said, can we use these for stuff on the bottle list? And, she kind of looked at the person who was running the event, and she was like, is that okay with you? These were just for, and I was like, so how much for Rodenbach Vintage? I was like, that one sounds cool. I thought maybe I had heard of it before, but I was like, wine, when they, vintage, I was just like, vintage sounds great. Let's order that. And so they brought the bottle, and it was from 2011, and this is 2018. And they didn't, and it didn't say on the menu what year it was from. And I looked at the waitress, was like, oh, this is really old. In my mind, beer, you're supposed to it goes bad. That's what that's kind of what I thought. And she said, look, it was drink tickets. I'm not going to try and figure out, I think she had also opened the bottle too. Right. she had popped the cork already. But I was like, all right, cool. We're all going to get to try this really nasty tasting experiment. And so we had taster glasses for everybody, and everybody took a sip, and we were just all looking around everybody there was no idea beer could taste like this. No idea beer could age like this. It had obviously, looking back on it now that I know more about beer, it had been cellared absolutely perfectly. It was, that was the epiphany. The clouds parted, and, a voice came down and just said, this is beer and it is good. And I was like, I have to do this. I think I got home, found a place that had that particular vintage, and bought an entire case of it so that I could try it again every year. I wasn't able to control myself. I think I had 2 or 3 a year. I just couldn't. It was, it was so good. That's how I kind of got into it. I was mostly buying beers that I thought could be stored. There was a book called Vintage Beer that I immediately ordered and read, and I figured out how to store beer, how to cellar it properly, and started, buying all the different ones that I think Patrick Dawson is the author, and he had some verticals that they had done in the book, and so I bought all those different, commercial examples and just started filling. I found the perfect wine cellar where it had like shelves and it wasn't like the wooden, where you have to lay the bottles down. And so I could stand up all of my bottles. So I bought one that holds like 125 bottles and just started filling it up. And then I got really into watching a documentary called the Somm Documentaries, where they followed around people who were master sommelier candidates.
Yep.
And I thought, man, there's got to be something like this for beer, because wine's super expensive and I don't like wine. And I just searched beer sommelier, and the first thing that popped up was the Cicerone program. And I looked through that, and they were, and I was reading through and it had mentioned BJCP. So I looked at BJCP2 to see what that was all about. It seemed a lot easier to do whatever Cicerone was doing. I didn't know anything about either of them, but I was like, okay, Cicerone, I can take this exam online. I know how much it costs. They have a study guide that goes with it. I'll buy that, that package. And, studied that for longer than I should have. Like, I probably needed to watch the guide like 2 times, and then I could have taken it in a week. But I was, I was really nervous about it. But then when I heard about what it took for level 2, then I was like, okay, there's got to be like because they didn't have a study guide. And I was like, well, I guess there's got to be one out there. And that's how I found Beer Scholar. And I used Beer Scholar to study. I pretty much like all the like written stuff that I did for practice, that's exactly what I got on the exam. Like, I think I got an 87 on a practice exam, an 89, and I got like an 88 overall on the exam.
All right. That's a solid testimonial right there.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was great. And, and the other great thing too, is that, speaking of the level 2, the level 2 study guide, the good thing about, the fact that you're moving everything over to video is that we can include a tasting portion now, and that's something that we can record and that we can work on, and that can be available to people. Because that was the one thing I was like, oh man, like I'm gonna have the written. That was always the advice. If you want to crush the written, then Beer Scholar will get you there no matter what. But the tasting, you got to put in the work. You got to figure all that out. But now that we're moving stuff to video format, it's going to be way easier to help people on the whole when it comes to the exam. So that's one thing I know I'm super duper excited about, and that we were working on today, and we're going to get all those videos done and edited up as soon as we can. And I know that's some more super exciting news. But that's how I found out about Cicerone. And then the way I met Chris was, I said on Facebook, hey, I've got everybody's got the pandemic going on, everybody knows how to use Zoom now, why don't we just start an online study group? And Chris was one of the people who reached out and said, yes, like add me to the, the private Facebook group where we'll have the community part of it. And he came to the second meeting, and me and him pretty much after that, I just knew he was going to be the guy who I could count on to run the meeting if I ever couldn't make it, which was very rare. But yeah, we ended up just basically running it together, and, we can talk a little bit more about how that all went if we want to, but that's how we met. And then I passed my advanced exam this year. Thankfully the first try on everything, so I didn't have to retake anything. So that was great.
Yeah, dude, congratulations.
Now I'm excited. Yeah. And now I'm super excited to be, putting all of that knowledge and stuff that we learned into something great like Beer Scholar and being a part of the team.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked to have you and Chris. And I mean, I think we had kind of crossed paths on that Facebook group. I didn't really, I wasn't super involved in it. I would get pinged from it every now and then, because every freaking week someone would be like, hey, I want to take the CC, what should I do? And someone would be like, tag me and be like, buy his study guide. And I'd come over and I'd be like, thanks, bro, like whatever. But and I try to be active on that stuff. Well, I fucking hate Facebook, I'll be honest. I've got 10,000 followers on there, and it's like, and it's kind of stayed at 10,000 for years, because, I trickle stuff out there, and for a while I was like really going at it, and I grew that page like really fast, but oh my God, I just can't stand using Facebook now. It's actually all the changes that have been made to Facebook, like the the interface. Just I find it unusable and frustrating. So whatever. But anyway, yeah, I know that we had some interactions on there, and so that was very cool. I saw you saying like, who wants to join me, and like I saw your posts about that.
Right.
So it was a real trip to it's just a trip to think back to that and think about where we are now.
Yeah.
Because it's actually been like a couple years.
Yeah, it's coming up on a couple years. Yeah, very soon here will be 2 years.
It's nuts. So, okay. So I just learned a bunch of things about you. I actually didn't know a lot of that. I think I want to throw out a few fun facts about Scott that I do know. One is that you have poker. Poker is your game?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I have on multiple sort of small stints played poker to try and pay the bills. Like full-time job, like no, not like, oh, we're just gonna go out and gamble and have a good time and take my buddies and try and get free drinks or get cooked or whatever. Like get there like 10 a.m. with all the other bums that are trying to do it, and and do it for 8 hours, or if you win a certain amount, then you can go home, or you can try to keep riding the streak and having to figure out money management, bankroll management. It's the saying is true. It's a easy way to make a tough living. So or a tough way to make an easy living. I think it's
got it. Yeah. So. No, that's such a trip, man. I mean, I think I'm just so interested in that because it's like, I think when you tell someone that you do beer stuff for a living, they're just like, that sounds fucking awesome. Like, what?
Yeah.
Right? And
that's the thing. It doesn't make sense because then they're like, wait a minute. Wait, how do you do that?
Right.
And
right.
And then they're super curious.
Dude, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's just, I think that's everyone's like weird dream job. And I did just see, I did just read, you probably saw it, an article in, I want to say it was the New York Times, about the new computer, the new like, I mean, it's not that new. It's a few years old, where like people are just playing according to what those new computer algorithm like programs will kind of tell you to do. And basically, as long as you can memorize the gajillion kind of card combos that you play certain card combos a certain way, then you will basically, over time, you will make money. So it sounds like poker has changed.
Right. Yeah. It's called So what those are called flop charts. And so, it gives you every single card combination possible that you can get. Like Texas Hold'em is obviously the most popular. Yeah. And it basically says if you're in this position at the table in relation to the dealer button, these are the frequency with which you should play these types of hands. Yeah. And when you should raise and when you should fold and when you should just call. And it's called playing it Game Theory Optimal, GTO.
That's right.
It's kind of the shorthand for it. Yeah, and it's basically so you can never be taken advantage of by somebody there, because if you play Game Theory Optimal, you're not playing in any sort of pattern that somebody can pick up on. You're
right, because
it also suggests that even though this is the optimal way to play this hand, every 100 hands you should be folding that hand in that position so that that's sort of in your range, quote unquote, right, that you're able to do that from time to time.
Which is all crazy. I mean, that's all crazy. I just, I'm just kind of in awe of. I actually, when I read that article, and I mean, this is a totally a conversation that we shouldn't go on a tangent about, but like when I read that article, I did think, oh man, it feels kind of like the soul is being sucked out of poker by like AI.
Yep.
So anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
It was all right. So very interesting. That is just like a cool thing, man. I mean, it's a real cool thing that you did that. It just I think, when I have hung out with Scott Fielder, one thing I would have never guessed is this guy played poker professionally. But I mean, that's badass, dude. All right, so how about Chris? Chris, let's hear about your beer background and your normal background, your non-beer background.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Wyoming. I'm just a Wyoming boy, and so It's funny, like when you start getting into beer with any of the certification stuff at all, or like working in the industry, your social circle or your family, you're probably the nerdiest about beer, like immediately, even if you just pass the, beer server exam, it's like your family's going to you. They think you're the beer person. Any friends that I've had for more than 20 years, they think it's like mind blowing that I'm into beer at all. Cause I wasn't a beer drinker, let alone drink anything for the longest time. I was, I stumbled onto the debate team in high school. I did that through high school and college. I had no time to drink because I was busy being super cool, and so, it's the burden I bear, being a cool debate person like that. But that was my profession initially. I coached. I was a college and high school debate coach for a decade.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yep. It was. Wow. I debated for the University of Wyoming, and I like to call it the Harvard of Wyoming. But it's that's I thought that I was going to do that forever. I just loved like the game theory of it, similar to any other game that you might play. I love all the synthesizing of information and stuff. And by the time I started moving around the country a little bit, like I've had stints in Austin, Texas, Southern California, lived in Kentucky for a little bit, spent 5 years in Colorado. Bouncing around, I was thinking of making some kind of change. And when I lived in Austin is when I kind of got into beer a little bit. And that was just, I was there for 4 years, 2009 to 2013. And that's when the Austin beer scene was kind of starting. And so I knew nothing about beer, and I would taste like a Jester King mixed culture beer and just like blow my mind. Like I didn't even know that was a thing that existed.
Yeah, dude. So I just want to pause for a second and just say, like, sour beers, I do think, changed a lot of people's minds about beer, because there are certain gateway beer styles, right? That, for me, it was more like maybe like wit beer. But when the first time I had a sour also, I was like, oh shit, like doors just opened for me,
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's funny because, I'm at a time in my life where I'm just barely getting into beer, and then tasting these, early Jester King beers that are like, advanced beers per se. And it's, my funny story, how much of a novice I was about beer at that time was, IPA was still one of the first loves. And I think I would like try some new IPA every week just because like that's what you were supposed to drink, right? Like everybody's making IPA. There's a new bomber of IPA that you can pick up every week. And
remember Bombers?
I got to know the beer guy at that. Yeah, remember Bombers back in my day. But I would just go to the local like Specs liquor store in Austin and kind of got to know the beer guy a little bit. And he started noticing that I was picking up new IPA every week, just something else to try. And he kind of brings me aside one time and he's like, dude, we got Dogfish Head 120 minute in. Do you want one? He was like, it's limit 2. It's in the back. Nobody even knows I have it. And
that's awesome.
I know nothing about this beer. I know that like 3 weeks ago, I had Dogfish Head 60 minute, and 120 is twice as much as 60. So it's gotta be like twice as good, So he was like, I'll sell you 2. The limit is 2. And I took those 2 Dogfish Head. I had Dogfish Head 240 minute in one night. Because they don't print the ABV on it. It just has the like scary bottle cap, right? And the ABV changes every year. They're like 17% ABV.
Yeah.
And so I thought I had gotten some like insider info, and I was in the Cool Kids Club, and really what I did was accidentally get super hammered.
That's awesome.
And so that's even somebody that's like reasonably getting into beer, have no idea what they're doing, And so I've I came from that to eventually trying to get into the beer industry. Did a nice little craft beer bar in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Met a ton of wonderful beer nerds there that kind of like greased the wheels for the idea about Cicerone and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 2016, I moved to Boulder, Colorado. And it was like, okay, if you're moving anywhere in the country and you want to get into beer, that's a pretty good spot. So
Yeah.
I had decided I was just going to dive completely into the beer industry at that point and see what I could do. And I took the certified beer server exam, so I had that under my belt, and I started working at a beer store in Boulder, Colorado. And, shout out to my buddies Andrew and Nick. They kind of helped convince me to do a little study group with them to get ready for level 2. And, I don't know if I would have done it without them, but it's funny looking back on some of your materials, Chris, because, you kind of think it's a good problem to have, but you kind of over prepared for level 2 for sure. And it's funny, it's 3 of us studying for level 2, and we all worked at a very good beer store. And so it's like we are blind tasting each other on like just irresponsible numbers of beers every week. We had a weekly meeting for 3 months before the exam. No, it was longer. It was closer to 6. We started in December of 2016, and we took the exam in April of 2017. And we probably, for certified Cicerone exam, where you taste what do we taste? We taste 12 samples on the certified Cicerone exam.
Yeah.
We probably tasted like 300 beers.
Nice.
And it's just totally ridiculous with it. And so ended up passing that exam and kind of like putting things on the back burner, trying to focus on my career, got a job with some local breweries and stuff, and then was really in it to win it, And I actually signed up for the advanced Cicerone exam in the summer of 2019. And I was scheduled to take the exam in March of 2020. And
wow,
something happened in March of 2020.
Because like the full exam, right? This was when like everything was going to happen in one day. Like,
yeah,
right?
this
was the old school way now. Everything happens in one day in person.
Yeah. Everything was normal. I was set to take the full exam mid-March of 2020. And most of the restrictions, most of the lockdowns kind of came middle of that month, March 14th. So, and what's funny is like, I was robbed of taking that entire exam, but I don't know if I would have passed. I had just helped open a brand new brewery in Boulder. I kind of jumped to another brewery and went through all the rigmarole of opening a brand new brewery, and our grand opening was 48 hours before the lockdowns. So it was just, we were going 90 miles per hour on Saturday and 0 miles per hour on Monday. And so I didn't have a lot of time to study in the lead up to that exam anyway. So, revisionist history, I don't know if I would have passed, but the kind of serendipitous thing about it all is that I, kind of took a break from studying. It was totally up in the air when or if they were going to host exams again. Like, nobody knew what was going on. We were all washing our groceries, just trying not to get sick. And
I never washed my groceries. I won't say that.
Yeah, well,
I did. Lots of Clorox wipes. Go ahead.
I had to like save the bar. I was like at Old Devil Moon doing like stuff that seemed like very risky.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were taking every precaution, but I did not. The grocery thing I didn't. Anyway.
Well, it's funny how quickly your opinion can change on it depending on where you are, because I remember if I hadn't been opening a new brewery, we had our grand opening 2 days before and we knew things were going to shut down, right? It was like that middle of March where that was the cascading effect of COVID, is everybody knew states were one by one going to start shutting down. So we kind of got our grand opening in under the wire and just had hundreds of people, no mask. Masks weren't even a thing yet, and I just remember being so excited to open the brewery and thinking that COVID was not a big deal that morning. And then like by the end of the grand opening day, I was like, Yep, shut it all down.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. So
That's brutal.
So then you take a big break from running the brewery, doing all the pivoting you're talking about, trying to make some money in the interim and figure out how you're going to survive. And, it was completely up in the air when there was going to be another advanced exam.
Right.
And then Cicerone kind of announced at some point, actually before they announced that they were going to do the online written exams, I just happened upon Scott's study group, and it was just, there's no like magic to it, right? It was just, Scott was looking for people to study with. A lot of people answered the call. We hit it off immediately and kind of became co-leaders of the group.
Yeah.
And you just need two, right? You just need two to start. You need like one other person to keep you accountable, to pick up the slack when you're not feeling it,
Yeah.
And we studied officially, twice a week for 18 months, basically. And then Scott and I would meet separately in addition to that to go over all the reading. You're sending each other beers and stuff like that. And so,
or we did essay practice with Brian, Master Cicerone Brian Reed. That was another thing we did on the days that we didn't meet with the group.
Yeah.
But
so, COVID delaying my test date is a blessing in disguise. Maybe I might not have passed. And then I ended up being able to be in the lucky position to be able to use that time to spend an inordinate amount of it on studying for advanced. And so Scott and I took advanced.
And you made new friends
at the same time. Yeah, exactly. And it was, we're getting ready to take, at this time in history, we're getting ready to take the online component. We're trying to like figure out exactly how that's going to be. And everybody's like sick of Zoom meetings anyway. Everyone just wants to hug each other in person. But it was like, since everything was moving online anyway, it really benefited our study group. We didn't have to be in the same spot. I was in Colorado, Scott's in California. We had people on the East Coast. One of our best friends is in India, and we could just find the times that everybody could meet online and solve that meetup problem just, with the link of a Zoom call.
Yeah.
That was such a huge advantage.
That is one of the most positive Zoom stories, because all the Zooming, I think now that it's 2 years later, I think everybody's like, I want to throttle Zoom, right? But it did connect. I reconnected with friends on the East Coast that I hadn't talked to a lot over the years. The pandemic really did some interesting things to us, to all of us. Good and bad.
Well, and I hope just the change, where people being more comfortable online helps those people that maybe didn't pursue some of the Cicerone exams because they didn't find someone in their immediate circle that wanted to like do it with them.
Right.
And now you can find people that are a little further away. And then as, we meet our goals of releasing material through Beer Scholar, you can restudy along with us, and it's just way easier.
You were talking about, reinventing the wheel on this kind of stuff, or do you need to invent the wheel yourself, or are you want to wait for me to do it or whatever? But yeah, no, you guys did, what you did was like heroic, and just the few kind of hangout sessions I went to, I was very impressed by how serious you were. I did not have any of that. I kind of, once again with advanced, similar to how I felt with like certified, was like, I don't really know what level I need to know things to, and I don't really know who to talk to about this. No one's taken the test before. And I just wasn't sure exactly how to approach it. I studied with a few people here and there. One of those people did pass, but mostly I felt like those sessions were not worthwhile. And so I didn't pursue like setting up an actual, study group, because I was like, well, I don't want to run the study group by myself for like everyone's benefit. Like I just need to study. Like I'm just busy with studying. So, Yeah, it's very cool that you guys connected, and obviously what you were doing was working. I mean, you took it to a level. Just what I was witnessing was like, I was like, you guys are taking it to a level. I thought when I was prepping, I told myself, I'm gonna prep for this test like I'm prepping for the master level, right? But when I saw what you guys were doing, I was like, oh, they're studying like they're studying for the master, and I was like, not as much as I thought it was, I mean, I was working hard, but I was doing it all on my own, and I guess it's always felt like that in terms of prepping for the tests. I've known a couple masters over the years and all that, but I didn't like ever ask them to help me study. And anyway, what you guys have done is super impressive, and the Zoom sessions you were doing are super impressive. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, Scott, you already passed, and Chris, I mean, I think within a week we're gonna be congratulating you too. And
I agree.
A worst case scenario is like you're like me, you passed the written and you might have to retake the tasting. Worst case scenario, but probably not, because you leave the tasting knowing what the answers were more or less and what your score was. So we're fairly confident that you will have passed. And like I said earlier on in this episode, is just seeing how serious you were and how organized you guys were, and seeing that you were actually passing was huge for me in feeling confident, saying like, hey, I would love to work with you guys. I would like to bring you onto the team and start making some things happen if you're interested. And I was really stoked that you guys were interested. So
well, there had definitely been times where when you came to the later meetings, and we had found out that we had passed, there were definitely times where I was like, maybe Cohen will ask us to do the AC study guide. And Chris was, would be like, that'd be really cool, but I don't know. That's whatever, we'll see. But, and then I told him, I said, dude, I got the email. Like he wants to do the advanced.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, I don't know, like you were saying, like, I don't know the exact moment it struck me, but I do remember thinking, like, like I said, it was just about, like, you guys being solid more than me thinking that I couldn't do it on my own, which is also probably true, but beside the point. So.
Well, what's funny is it's our approach was probably at least subconsciously, but even more directly influenced by how you described, wanting to put the certified study guide together. We just kind of started and went through it with brute force. It was just like, we're going to take no prisoners. We're going to read everything. And we got to try to figure out, without much guidance, how to distill all this information into something that's usable. And so it's like, we sort of just repeated how I think you would have approached the exam. If you had a awesome study group back in the day, and that's what it's all about, right? It's like, now that we're trying to put materials together, it's like, how can we get rid of the fluff for folks, right, so that they can hone in on exactly what they need to know, and you're not wasting time studying something that maybe you don't need to study.
Because we definitely did some of that, but we also, we would know after a session that, like after meeting with Brian and doing stuff with him, we were like, okay, like at that point, that was like a leap of evolution in the way that we were studying.
Right.
Or, we went with another advanced Cicerone who was like, this is how you actually need to study. Like once you're studying for more than 3 hours, you're not really getting much of a return after that, just from just the way your brain works standpoint. Or if you're going to do flashcards, do them right before you go to sleep. That's when your brain's super ready to receive information. And then we were like, okay, that changed the game. And that took us to another, so there were just these little leaps here and there. And then I think when you, kind of came after, because you came to that first, kind of pre-meeting, to starting the group. But then once you came back again, we had gone through so many different iterations where we were just like, man, we didn't need to be doing that like that, or we didn't need to be doing this, or we kind of theorized, this about what might be, the case for the exam. But now that we have been doing this, we're thinking maybe that's not what we should be doing. I mean, it was just constant. And that was the great thing about having Chris, because if I was having to do all of that for a group of 3 or 4 people, I would have had the same thought as you. I would have been like, I can't keep doing this unless I feel like there's somebody else who's got that much skin in the game, like just as much as I do.
And that's another thing I will just say right now is like, I didn't know who you guys were. I didn't know how serious you were, and I think there is that, like, I feel like a lot of people have that thing where they're like, I'll help you if you're like helping yourself also, right? But like, you can't lean on me 100% for this thing. You know what I mean? Generally speaking, like every person I feel like wants to help other people, but you want to help people who are, going for it, who are serious. And so, when you first came to me, I didn't know you guys, and so I was just like, I don't know, this sounds like could just be too much work, could be too crazy. I don't know how serious you are. Anyway,
and we had that same experience just with people in the group. Of course, there was a guy who showed up for the first 2 sessions, and he seemed like he was really into it. And then we brought Brian on to do classes for everybody on each of the different sections.
Is Brian Reed the master, one of the few master Cicerones out there? He helped you guys out. I went to those sessions, a bunch of those sessions.
Right.
That guy obviously is brilliant. I just want to, I know you mentioned his full name a little bit ago, but I just want to mention it again.
Yeah. And for the record, we paid him and others for their expertise, which you should do too. You should
offered.
Absolutely, yeah.
And pay these people.
That's the thing. Even when folks were like, that was actually the one nice thing about Brian was since he's a master Cicerone and he does this a lot, he had a very specific, amount that he would charge. And then when we'd get advanced people to help us and we'd want to pay them, they'd be like, well, I don't know how to charge. And we're like, okay, well, if Brian's master and this is what he's charging, and so we just kind of used that as a scale, and we felt like, we were being generous enough to, when folks weren't saying a price, they were just like, oh, just give me whatever price you come up with is going to be, is going to be fine.
One of the things that did immediately make me think you were serious about it and piqued my interest early on, and maybe was one of the things that got me to start just at least even hanging out, was that you did say like, hey, we're serious enough that we're willing to pay you, so I was just like, oh, these guys. And
literally when we started doing the classes with Brian, there were 2 people who were in the original meetings when we had 5 or 6 people. There were 2 gentlemen who were doing it. And when we brought on Brian, they were like, actually, this is like too serious. They're like, we didn't think calling in like a master Cicerone and like having us pay for classes. Like this is actually too serious. And I'm going to like take a step back. I don't think I'm ready to take the exam. And yeah, there were people who were like, and I thought they were serious. Like they had ideas about how they wanted to study. And I was like, okay, I think I've got, a good group here. And then they just bowed out. They were like, if you're bringing in people like that, that's too much
that's crazy though. Like what a wonderful opportunity, right? Like how many, I've known a bunch of masters over the years, but all the, the Bay Area guys like Rich Higgins and Nicole Ernie, and I've hung out at bars with them a bunch, and we've talked shop, and like, it's they're in rarefied place. They are the best of the best, and you can just sitting there having a beer with them and in a non-serious situation, and they're like, they say what they're experiencing with the beer, and you're like, God damn, these people are really good. Like,
and it's just kind of exuding from them. They're not just sitting there trying like this is like a session we're doing together. They're just kind of, it's just how they live now. Yeah.
I mean, they're I mean, I'm not trying to like blow smoke, but yeah, I mean, they're only 19?
There's 20 now. They announced the 20th this year.
So like, it's a hard test. I mean, they've been testing for it for a decade, more than a decade, 15 years, and there are 20. So you know, it's hard. It's a hard test. The people who pass it really know their shit. And I certainly... I knew when I hung out with those folks that I was not on that level, even remotely, so...
Brian definitely changed the game for us. And honestly, the other big thing that was really helpful was before we knew about the online exam, we were studying twice a week, but one day was for written and then the other day was a tasting. And so it was like, okay, go get, this particular style, and we're going to talk through, consumer descriptors, maybe do some technical descriptions and things of that nature. And we did it for a while. And then I asked Brian if he wanted to do it. And he was like, oh, I haven't done it in a while. Like, if you send the beers, I'll do it or whatever. And then we were all kind of crossing our fingers that he would kind of catch the bug again, which he absolutely did. So we definitely did more tastings after that. But when he read us a technical description where I don't know if I could have written it better and I knew what the beer was. I was proctoring the exam and he was basically reading the description of the beer on the back of the can without seeing the can. It was unbelievable. I was like he's reading his thing and I'm looking at Chris with my mouth is like, my jaw is on the floor. I'm like, he's getting every single thing right. Every note, like, whether it's coming from the barrel or not, or whether it's an addition, the kind of chocolate that's added. Like, it was just, we were just like, okay, well, like we need to be paying like full attention to what this guy is doing.
Yeah.
Because if we can do that, our chances of passing are exponentially better.
And you know what? And I think we should start talking about Beer Scholar. We're hitting an hour, so let's talk about what our plans are for Beer Scholar. But I do want to say, like, just on that topic, like, everybody who I've ever talked to about prepping for these exams, not everybody, but like 99.99%, is like, they say like, oh, I'm just not good at that. I can't possibly pass that or whatever. And the tasting portion I'm talking about. As if these people just come out of the womb able to do this work. It's so bizarre to me that, like, no one questions the fact that, like, a medical doctor went to med school and, like, learned how to do the things they do. But for some reason, everybody thinks that just because they eat and drink, that, like, someone who's actually studied it and is good at it somehow just was naturally good at it. And that is just not true. It is all learned. There maybe at the very highest levels, there is a little bit of genetic stuff that comes into play. But, if anyone's listening who thinks that they're just not good at tasting, and so couldn't possibly pass these tests, it really is brute force. Like, you mentioned the term brute force before, and that is, Scott, and I just think that, like, when you can get the Beer Scholar study guide for the certified level, maybe that gives you a way to kind of not go brute force on that one. But, like, as far as my impression of advanced, I mean, hopefully we get a guide out there that, like, lowers the brute force element of it. But, like, for me, advanced, and for you guys, it sounds like advanced. And certainly everyone I've ever talked to who has done master, I mean, it is just brute force. Study, taste. You're changing your brain, like you're rewiring your brain. This is not, it's not something that you just come out of the womb good at.
Right.
Yeah. Now that the, part of the exam's online too, that can be an advantage for some. And
totally.
You correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but you probably had to walk uphill both ways in the snow to take your exam, and you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's getting easier. It's getting easier every little bit.
That's right. Yeah, I had to schlep all the way from San Francisco. Yeah, I had to schlep all the way from San Francisco to Alameda in like right near Oakland, to take the whole exam. I had to take the written and the tasting on the same day. And there was a big crowd there. They were doing it for 2 days. I think there was 2 sessions. So, like, I don't know, 40 people took it one day, 40 people took it the next day. Like 5 people passed.
Yeah.
All these people had come up from SoCal.
Y'all were the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That's totally true. So, all right, man. I've learned so much about both of you guys. I'm super impressed with your journey. I mean, Scott, the fact that you like didn't even really have drinks until, or like weren't into beer until like 5 years ago. That's insane to me. I did know that, but that still blows my mind. You know, and Chris, I mean, I had no idea that you did debate. That's amazing. I think a lot of people who, you know, go into law, you know, have a little background of debate club type stuff. So I know a lot of those kids, and I'll definitely talk to you some more about that, question you more about that offline at some point. I want to say,
You argue a bit about it.
you know, I mentioned like Scott's poker thing, but also Chris, you have a thing that I want to mention. That is that you have a card thing too, and you have played some poker, but it's mostly that you're really good. And I watched some of your YouTube videos. You're actually a pretty solid, like rock solid magician.
Yeah, that's been a fun thing. You know, it's like Scott and I joke a lot about how we kind of have addictive personalities. You kind of like try to really get extremely good at one thing and then move on to the next thing over the years. And yeah, sleight of hand magic became one of those things for me. And what's funny relating to the previous stories about getting into beer and studying is when the shutdown happened, I started on my, extremely bare bones YouTube channel, a new socially distanced magic trick every day for 4 weeks in a row.
I've watched them.
That was me, sheltering from the world a little bit, trying to take my mind off of, just having had to shut down a brewery we opened. So I got that out of my system and then got back into studying for the advanced Cicerone exam.
Dude, I watched a bunch of those. They're like wildly impressive. I tried to get into some of that stuff, but with coins back in the day.
Nice.
Very difficult.
There was a whole year where that was what I was obsessed with, doing magic tricks, all kinds of stuff.
It's weird and cool.
It's so fun.
So
Chris, you were saying you've brought 2 people onto the Beer Scholar team. You wanted to talk a little bit more. What are some other visions and hopes and dreams that you've got for the future of Beer Scholar? We've talked about the Advanced Cicerone Study Guide. What's some of the other stuff you've got?
Yeah. Okay. So I just moved to Portland a couple weeks ago, and it is like I don't have a job here. I am just full-time on Beer Scholar, right? It's crazy, I know. So, I I still am an owner of Old Devil Moon. I'm still helping them out. I mean, San Francisco Beer Week is happening in like starting in a couple days. I'm still like doing event stuff for them. Today was Hen House's release of Big Chicken, which is like their super fresh 1 day double IPA where they like package it, deliver it, and it gets tapped the same day. We blew that keg in 1 hour. So like things at Old Devil Moon are happening, and I'm still helping them out, but I'm not there bartending. And that has opened up for me an enormous amount of time to finally just be 100% full-time on Beer Scholar, because, Beer Scholar has over the years done pretty well. And there were some years where it did really well. And then, essentially once I opened Old Devil Moon, I just haven't had the time to put into it that I would like to. And so I am extremely excited to be full-time on it. I've already gotten the first level, an online course out for the first level for Certified Beer Server. So I just released that, a month ago or something like that, as well as along with a whole new website. My website was looking like some 2008 shit, and now it's it was bad. I mean, I made it myself, like when I first started Beer Scholar, and like now it looks pretty modern and professional. And I got the first level online course out. I am working on the level 2 course, and we have been talking for several months about the level 3 course, So that is in the works. You guys are, we all have been working on that a bunch, but also at some point I said, hey, you know what? I'm working on level 2 and I've got the basic study guide done, right? So I'm turning that into this online course. But like you mentioned, now we can really do a lot more for the tasting portion. So at some point I was like, hey, why don't you guys work on that? And I'll do the regular lessons for kind of the written portion. And so that's happening. So within a few months, we're going to have an online course for level 2. We are currently working on an advanced Cicerone online course. First section that's going to come out is going to be the food and beer pairing, which we chose to do because I think it is, for me at least, maybe the most exciting thing about beer. It takes, you have to synthesize everything you know about beer, plus like all this stuff about food. It's the hardest thing you can do and be good at. I don't know, maybe tasting beer and describing it is harder, but it's a
lot of people think too, everyone has a different opinion, but a lot of people think that food and beer pairing is the biggest jump between level 2 and 3 as well.
Totally.
So that's kind of what motivated us to think about diving right into the meat and potatoes, so to speak.
Yeah, on the one hand, we thought that it would be, I think, just fun. It's also kind of a smaller section. We just figured we could kind of rock that one. Get that one out quicker. It would be kind of fun. It'd be a good place to start. It is a huge jump from the CC. The CC has very little, there are very few questions about food and beer pairing. You get to the AC and it's like, boom, in your face. If you're not good at that, you're probably, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have a bad time. So we're doing that. We're doing that first, and then we're going to hit every section. And, certainly the goal is to have that done by the whole thing done by the end of the year. But, Beer Scholar, I think, these are like the core kind of like products that we need to get done, right? But there's so much more we can do with this, the brand. I hate to say it that way. It's really more than that, I think. It's all about community, right? Like, we all got into beer and we all took it to this degree. On one hand, because we're all a bunch of nerds, but on the other, because we love the beer community, right? The people in it are what make it great. And so, I'm really excited to do some of these kind of things that aren't just the courses, but like the podcast. Start doing live streams where we are answering people's questions about the tests, stuff like that. I think maybe the thing I'm the most excited about is I've created a Discord server. I have not invited everyone on there yet, but it is sitting there waiting. We're going to invite all the people who have purchased Beer Scholar study guides. We're going to invite them all soon. And in the not too distant future, when you buy one of the study guides, you will get access to the Discord server for like a certain amount of time. And it will be some kind of subscription thing. Like this is like in the future, right? It'll be some kind of subscription thing, maybe sort of Patreon-ish, but you will actually just be able to, instead of like signing up on Patreon and then maybe getting like membership to some Slack channel or something elsewhere, it'll be all right on Discord, and we'll all be able to interact with the community. We'll be able to bring the community together in the space and very easily do like live streams where we can, like the three of us, whoever else we bring on the team, brewers, just other people in the community who have knowledge that they want to share, who want to interact in that space. We're all going to be able to spend some time on there and get to know each other and form community and just, I think, learn a lot. And I'm super excited about that. So I think the Discord thing is maybe the thing that is I'm most excited about. The element I'm most excited about. I don't know. What are you guys into?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott. You were getting ready.
It's got to be the AC study guide and the level 2 tasting stuff. So, yeah, it just feels like we get to. I'm one who kind of really wants to stay sharp. After I was done with this, I really didn't want to have a huge, kind of lag where some of this, stuff that I was learning kind of went away. And so that was another thing I thought, when you sent that email, I was just like, okay, like I'm going to be putting this stuff together and I'm going to be essentially, revisiting the information so often and, recording videos. And, we're going to also be trying to get other people in the industry in those kinds of videos who have, even far more experience, pairing beer and food than we do. And having lots of different faces and lots of different folks, that people will get to see in that content. So that's probably what I'm the most excited about.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the Discord community stuff quite a bit because it's like, I do relish like putting together some of the study materials. I'm just wired that way. I really enjoy it for some odd reason. But, beer communities have evolved so much, for good and for bad in some instances. And there's all these like disparate pieces, right? It's like we're losing some really awesome magazines, but then, gaining maybe some other really incredible media about beer. But it's like we need a space where there's kind of like a low level of requirement. No, that's not the way I want to explain it. Where there's an easy space to commune about beer without the pressures of, fitting into any of the other certain elements about, beer's past, where there's tons of, gatekeeping and weird assumptions. And I just want to be able to like either log in and just like shoot the shit about some beers that we're drinking with some really smart people from a ton of different backgrounds, or like take a cool like live stream little class that someone's putting together where they're just like, I want to give a little food and beer pairing seminar and you can just sign up here, and it's just super low stakes to be involved in something really great.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we're going to hear about people who join the community and they get connected. They realize, oh my gosh, like we're actually not that far away from each other. We should be getting together and, tasting stuff and, doing, splitting off flavor kits together. I mean, just all the things where you just wish you had a group of people to do it with. I just hope there's just no more, we just don't hear about any more people taking, levels 2 and above where they're just like, I feel like I got to do this by myself and I have nobody to taste with or nobody to bounce ideas off of, that they can just always think, no matter what, I've got the Discord channel and that means I'm gonna be good and I can lean on that.
Yeah. I mean, that was me. That's why I made the study guides, right? That's why I started the San Francisco Homebrewers Guild, because I felt like I was homebrewing in a vacuum. And I feel like that's the story of my life is trying to solve my own problems here. So, and
well, I think there's a super relatable thing.
Yeah. I've been lucky that those things have worked out in terms of like them being kind of like viable businesses. But, I feel both of your perspectives on this. Like, Scott, I mean, I cannot wait to get these courses done. I definitely do feel personally a little bit like I really enjoy studying and I want to learn this stuff, but I also feel so much pressure to get these courses done. I would just want to get them done. And then, the things I'm more looking forward to for like fun is like, Chris, what you were saying, more like the community stuff, and I mean, I know we're all looking forward to that, but that Discord kind of interaction, streaming, just kind of the fun, what I think of as the fun stuff. And I'm really stoked about that. So it's all coming. I'm super stoked.
Buckle your seatbelts.
Yeah. Buckle your seatbelts.
The big thing you need to be doing is, this is like, I mean, to me, this just feels like a total, like you said, you were kind of doing Old Devil Moon for so long and now you're full-time into Beer Scholar. This is, I mean, to me, this feels just like a relaunch, new website, new courses, teachable, the Discord community. So follow Beer Scholar on Instagram, any platform where you can find it, follow it. Make sure to keep up so that you know when stuff is coming out, and that you can just be on the ball when all this stuff is happening, and you can make sure you're a part of it.
Yeah, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. I would say, I have 10,000 followers on Facebook. I do things that get posted on like Instagram or whatever, do end up there too. If that's your jam, do that. Instagram's cool in the gang. Definitely doing that. YouTube, I think YouTube is where it's going to be at, right? Like this will be posted on YouTube, and ultimately, I think I'm going to focus real hard on YouTube, because I think that we can do so much cool video content, and and also the podcast, right? I mean, it's cool to have this visual for the podcast, but like if you just want to listen to it on Apple Podcasts, like that, it'll be there too. Yeah. So, oh man, I'm so stoked. These are the kind of conversations that get me excited. I'm just glad to be working with. Right? I'm just glad to be working with guys.
I honestly just forgot about YouTube, and now I'm just even more psyched, because we're gonna do the level 2 tasting videos, but then the fact that we can just you can subscribe to that channel and you're studying, and then all of a sudden you just pop up and there's a video on here we're gonna do a side-by-side and for level 2 stuff, and here's how to tell saison and whip beer apart,
right? And
it's just gonna a quick 5-6 minute video just comparing two great commercial examples, DuPont versus Allagash White or something, and just if you're getting this on the exam, maybe here are some things to think about or something like that. That just gets me. I'm super excited.
Oh, you know what else I forgot to mention? I've been talking to some people about doing these courses in Spanish. So that's also in the works. That's extremely exciting.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Maybe even Portuguese. I'm hoping that'll happen too. So we're going global.
There's definitely there's a need for that. There's a lot of people who they're just so excited when I saw somebody, they were excited they could get the yeast book in the the 4 ingredient books. They could finally get the yeast book in their their native language, and so it's a super important thing to be doing.
100%. All right, well, I feel like this was super fun. The episode 1, I guess I'll still post that as episode 1, because we said it would be episode 1, but this was really fun, and like I think just a blast to really talk to you guys in a less formal situation about what our goals are and where we're all coming from and how we ended up where we are now and where we want to end up in the near future. I think it's all super exciting. I know that I just envision this future where Scott and Chris, you guys are going to have like your whole own like series of videos on Beer Scholar. Like I just envision this future where we grow this thing to something that's kind of hard to even imagine right now, because here we are. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy talk, but that's my big picture. That's what I'm imagining. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out tonight. And thank you.
Let's go get it.
Yeah, thanks to my mom for watching, our only audience member. Maybe we'll have a few more by the end of the month. And thank you, y'all. Thanks for hanging out for the Beer Scholar Family Hour. We will see you for episode 3. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Just stretch so we can get this
looking good. Looking good. I like that shirt.